Welcome to another Founder Wisdom podcast with Isabelle Verstraete. She is founder at the Care Principle, that is. She's also a book author. We're going to discuss about a bunch of cool topics today: empathy, marketing, collaboration, brand strategy, and the Care Principles. I'm curious to learn about these. Isabelle has been in Oaxaca a decade ago, which is the place I stand in today, and we were talking about memento mori and valuing death, and it's gonna come from most of us, and odds are all against my forever living longevity quest. I am aware of that, but it's just super important to remind yourself that this life is valuable and that the adventure could come to an end. This podcast is brought to you by podfire.com. If you want to start your own podcast before you die, you can go to podfire.com and scale your pods, monetize, and do some ikigai stuff on a daily basis. Have fun while making money. Isabelle, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about
Thank you.
yourself and the care principles.
Thank you, Charles. Lovely to be here. I'm a brand strategist. I've been working in brand strategy and overall branding, marketing, communication for most of my life, actually. And during lockdowns in 2020, I didn't have a job. Talking about death, my mother was actually dying then. So I was very sad. I didn't have a job. And then I decided to trick my brain and said, imagine I just won the lottery, what would I do? And I decided, well, I would love to write a book. I always wanted to write a book. I never had time. You know how busy it is to be an independent and a consultant and an entrepreneur. And so I started to research in the midst of the pandemic what companies needed to do for the future. And out of that came the Care Principles, which is basically a strategic framework to help companies become not only the best in the world, because that's what everybody wants, to be the best in the world and the biggest and the largest, which is very interesting for the business owner, but it's very often not that interesting for the clients. So to become the best in the world, but also for the world. So more caring for people, more caring for planet. That's the idea behind it. And then there are some shifts, some enablers that are within the strategic framework. And the C of care stands for collaboration. The A stands for agility. The R stands for reliability. And the E stands for empathy. And you apply them internally within your own company, on your employees, and then, of course, with your clients, your stakeholders. And there's a whole sustainable part, which is the care for the planet part. So that's like in a very, very nutshell what the care principles are all about.
I love that. I speak to a lot of diversity people nowadays. They seem all over the place, just like everyone and their cousins are coaches. I think that some people do diversity right. I also think that a lot of people do diversity for money. That's like a fact for me from what I've observed in the industry. It seems to me that you have a different approach and that you communicate things differently and that you embody inclusion. Yesterday, I wrote on my LinkedIn. I'm not sure if I posted that yet, but some people they promote diversity, but they also promote buy local, which in my opinion doesn't make any sense. Like
Why?
why? Yeah, why? It's a good question because I think that you need to interact with the world. You need to buy from other countries. You need to link up with other countries to prevent wars from happening. You also, for example, in my case, I deal with clients all over the world. Well, we're making a mastermind in 2 weeks from now in Montreal. I'll bring tourism dollars in my native Canada, right? So if you trade with people, if you trade dollars, that makes all of you accountable. And I feel that we should be one instead of having separations in countries. And to me, that is truly inclusive. So there's a bunch of principles like that. I fancy myself as a clear thinker, have stats and view on this full market, this full world. That's been my obsession for quite a while. Tell me about your perception on diversity and why it is important for the world and companies.
Mm. Um, Before I dive into the diversity part, because for me, diversity and inclusion is part of the agility part. It's part about how the world is changing and adapting to it, and diversity and inclusion is part of that. I would like to get back to what you were just saying about how people earn money with D&I, and then for you, it's the opposite of buying local and all of that. I follow your opinion to great length, but I think, like in anything, there's nuances. Because, for instance, if you go to the supermarket and there's a local apple, which is in whatever country you live, which is grown there by local tailor farmers or whatever, and there's a heavily subsidized flown in apple transported by plane, which is cheaper than the local apple, then it doesn't make sense to go for the cheaper alternative. And then on a global level, there's something wrong. Because if we continue to stimulate those kind of economical systems, we're not gonna find a solution for a better future. So the buy local, the stimulating the local, is for me something that you do with products, with when you have the choice. In materialistic things to do. When you talk about context, when you talk about brain capacities, when you talk about products that are not available or not in the same quality or the same whatever variety, whatever you're looking for, of course you should look for it abroad. And we have that. The international trade and the international community, the fact that we are now talking, you're Canadian, I'm Belgium, I'm in Antwerp, you're in Oaxaca, in Mexico. I mean, it works. But so I think you should maybe the nuances are very often we like to talk in like, oh, it's black and it's white and I'm like this and I'm like that. But very often reality is in the middle with the nuances. So I just wanted to stress that for me that is very important. I'm a big believer of buying local. But again, I'm also a big believer. I've written my book in English, although I'm not a native English speaker, because I wanted to have a global reach. So, yeah, just
I
wanted
agree with that.
to make that
Yeah.
point, Charles.
Yeah, reasoning in black or white is also full of value. Reasoning in extremes, because I feel that's how the brain reasons most of the time. Like our brains, it doesn't reason mathematically and like 87%, that doesn't mean much to a brain. And it's also an opportunity to have some kind of debate, right? And I think that's how we grow neurons. Because if if there's no cortisol, if there's no eustress in the brain, which usually debates bring, it's like, oh, I need to defend myself, which is also a bad part because there's ego in there. If you look at the political debates and so forth, that's not useful in my opinion. It's pure PR. But on this podcast, for example, if someone has a different opinion, I can look at their points and analyze them, right? And that's very valuable. Now the buy local, I mean, if it's like a Chinese company that disregards the environmentally, because also that example doesn't make much economic sense, to ship one apple. It would be like big shipments. We also need to observe the nutrients of the apple and so forth. I was also referring to the service industry, for example, but it's some people, they donate money to Africa, but I think just trading with Africa might be way better. Like hiring Africans, um, would have them up to date, right? It would upgrade their local ecosystem if you trade with them. And the war argument is quite strong, if Israel would trade with Arab nations and if the links were tighter. But there would also be like a counter argument to this. If we check like Ukraine and Russia, I think there was big trade going on with them. And I think Russia um, just wanted them out of the equation so that they could have like more pieces of the pie for themselves in case of the petroleum and all of that. I'm not sure also how much Russia is suffering from the economic embargo on them. But what's your coming back to well, if you have any comments on that, you let me know. But
Mm.
coming back to the last question, what's your view on diversity and how can it help the world? Well, still like keeping competition and economic competitiveness in the equation?
Well, for me, diversity and inclusion is very important because it's something we evolve towards a more complex world. We are in a transformational decade. We feel it, we sense it, and we need more diverse brains around the table to be able to solve the challenges that are ahead of us. And there are a lot of challenges ahead of us. And I'm a very optimistic person, and I know that humanity can solve the issues ahead of us, but we need more than just, and now I'm going to be very black and white, than old gray men around in the board meeting rooms. So we need to have people from all kinds of ages, all kinds of backgrounds. I'm not going to go into everything what is diversity and inclusion, but we need all the brains in the game. And so for me, it's something very important. It's something that I think it's part of how society is evolving now, and there's I find it very strange if people are fighting against that or are afraid of that. I mean, in the end, we are all humans. What is a different color or a different sexual orientation or a different age? Why is it so offensive, or why are people so afraid of it? Because you don't know it, sure, but try to be a little bit more open and open up to it and be curious. I think a lot of people miss curiosity in their lives. They just think, okay, this is who I am, this is what I know. And like you said before, it's about ego. This is me. And we are still very much in this ego-driven male society because it's a very male energy, and that has a lot of positives. I'm not at all against the male energy, but sometimes it's nice to be curious and to think, wow, that's interesting. That person is very different from me. How would they react? How would they solve the issue? What are they thinking? And I think if we are just open to that, and bringing those people to the table, we can learn a lot from them. So that's my point of view on diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, I'm all in on that. And neurodivergence, it's at the end of the day, it's all different brains. And I'm mostly against corporation, not because I'm a hipster, just because I think they don't make fundamental sense. I don't think they're truth. I think they're inflated fart balloons. I don't think they have much substance. They're just inflated with tons of money, and that's their advantage. And I mean, I'm gonna play these games as well, but it's probably to break the full system. And I wouldn't do it necessarily to give everyone a chance, although that is something in my heart. Like I believe that startups and becoming an entrepreneur can do immense good in this world. I also believe that it's on trend and fully aligned with this new AI world that we're seeing. I think that most employees and employeeship mostly favors mediocrity, just, punch in, punch out, get your check. And I also find it somewhat revolting. Well, the part of inclusion in me is like, I feel that the education system was mostly against me, and I was like, why didn't I not discover entrepreneurship before the time that I did? Had to go through like 3 to 4 years of like binge drinking, and that was my sport. I did that didn't scale. So the inclusion part of me, I don't like the word inclusion because it seems a bit soft, but anyway, is like, how can I prevent what happened to me to others, right? How can I teach entrepreneurship to others so that they can scale? And when you say great haired old man, I do agree. But another sad thing is that you have gray haired women that have their old man mentality in them, because that's what the old mans will accept on the board because it's just like them, right? And it's a yes woman. Um,
Totally.
and what is sad about this is just that they won at some point of their lives, right? They went out on a hunt and they won. And from there, they played defense. They have their moat and they never want to get out of their castle ever again because I don't know, they've been traumatized by the experience. So yeah, I'm all in with like people opening their minds up, taking more risk, innovating more for humanity. And yeah, we need different types of brain. people that can think clearer, and we need some people to keep them in check as well so that they don't ruin society while scaling capitalism.
Yeah, and you know what? I think, Charles, I think we are, and that's what I find fascinating about the times we live in. Although it's challenging times and the transformational decade we are in, and the things that are coming to us are not looking that great. Let's be honest, it's not looking that great. But what is fascinating is that the people we are talking about, the yes men, the yes women, who are still today in the lead, who still have the power, who earn a shitload of money, with the problems that we are facing and ahead of us. And the pandemic was a good example of that. If you're in your castle with zillion, trillion, $1 million on your bank account or not, you were obliged to do more or less the same things that people without money. And I think the things that are ahead of us will learn that going for that ego status of it's my money and I want to get super rich and it's me and me and me and me and me, that will not work anymore in the future. Because I'm not saying there will not be billionaires anymore, but I think, or at least I hope, we can go more towards a society where we know we need each other, and we need to look for systems that are more good for ecosystems instead of ecosystems. So that just for a couple of people. Maybe it's a fantasy of mine, but I really, truly hope that that is possible, because those ecosystems are not helping us.
I agree with that. Now, my thesis in the next 10 years is to become a multi-billionaire, so that I can disrupt the system.
What
There
are
is
you going to do
some,
with the money? What are you going to do with the money, Charles?
yeah, start social startups, start startups that will bring magic to people and huge values in their lives. So the status is one thing, but it's not, I mean, yeah, the ego stuff is, I think it's far behind me. It's mostly like using that status to amass more wealth and power and influence the system out there. I want
But
to
you,
achieve
but
these
do you,
billions
but sorry,
without polluting the planet and without breaking humans apart. But that will be somewhat dangerous because first, it's a lot of money. Second, it will be AI produced most likely. So still like thinking about that.
but Charles, why would you first want to build a huge company and earn billions of money before you start doing that? I challenge you to start to take care of people and the planet today. And you can do that by simply taking better care of one person already next to you, your neighbor, your wife, you don't need to wait to have billions of dollars or whatever to say, and now I can do social work, or now I can have a real purpose in life. I first need to focus on money and then I will do good. No,
Yeah.
doing good can be a beautiful force of businesses. And the companies that really do that, not the ones that are greenwashing, empathy washing, care washing, but the true companies that really do good, they make a shitload of money because
Right.
people know it. We have a sixth sense, we have our gut feeling, and we know when companies are really honest about what they do, and we know exactly when they are just telling a lot of bullshit and pretending to be green and to be sustainable and whatever. So
100%.
I really have proof that when you start to take better care today of people and planet, place it in the core of your business strategy, really make it your purpose that drives money, it will drive money.
Yeah, I believe in that 100%. So what are case studies of companies that really do good and make a whole lot of money? And please don't state Patagonia because they don't make a lot of money.
No, no. Well, but you sometimes making money shouldn't be the ultimate goal. It's also about the change that you want to see. And I think Patagonia is a great example of how they lead worldwide in what companies should do. So sometimes the aim is not always financial aim. It's also about leadership, and it's about how you want to change the world. And I think Patagonia is a great example of that. but I'll not talk about them because everybody talks about Patagonia. It's unfortunately one of the few rare examples of global brands. One of my clients, and you won't know them, but they are called Zeeman, Zeeman, Zeeman. It's a Dutch retailer that sells very cheap, very basic household stuff, baby clothing, and things like that. It's a family-owned company, but they are in 7 or 8 European countries, so they are quite big in Europe. Unfortunately, not global, or not in Mexico, not in Canada. And they really, really place their purpose of being really caring for people and planet before making money. And probably because they are family owned, probably because they have it in their DNA or something, although the current CEO is not part of the family. It's a company. I've written a case about them for my book. Then afterwards, I started to work with them, and I can really say with my heart on my hand, because people always ask me, yeah, but most, to tell me a true story, I could say with my heart on my hand, that company is really doing everything they can, and they are really the best example I have of the care principles.
Right.
So it is possible.
Yeah. Okay, couple of questions here. So I would consider Google a net positive impact for humanity, environment, everything together. And I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because it would require a quantum computer to calculate that, but an altogether positive, overwhelmingly positive impact on humanity, just providing a search engine, right? ChatGPT too. I had people that hated on OpenAI and ChatGPT, but I don't think they're burning the environment. It's, like their servers, they do like breathe a lot, right? But I do think that AGI will solve a bunch of things. Some people think it's far-fetched, it's like just a mad genius idea. Um, it's like justifying burning the environment, but I like these companies. So that's like what I have in mind for my own group of companies, favoring entrepreneurship, putting innovation and putting magic in the hands of people, bringing huge value to them. Not on the serotonin side, like, right, if I would do that, I'd just build a porn empire, which I think is deeply unethical and deeply, deeply, deeply toxic for society. So first, what do you think about that thesis? And second, tell me, tell me how you disrupt the big boys up there without playing their own game of money.
I forgot your first question, so let's move on
Yeah,
to the second
do you
question.
think I would like be a net beneficial value to humanity, building a multi-billion dollar AI company? Don't think I'd burn the environment. And second, with that thesis, making a whole bunch of money, having AIs in my hand and like very valuable product, I think that this would be a nice thesis to have billions and then have this. I don't even want to have a seat on the table. I want to create my own thing and disrupt the whole thing. What do you think about this thesis of mine?
If that's your dream, Charles, I would say go ahead. I think we all need a dream, and it's something, it's your purpose in your life then, and it's what gets you out of bed. I would just tell you to enjoy the ride and take it easy, because I know you work a lot. I know you're very proud of your back-to-back meetings and your back-to-back calls and your 75 meetings on a day or whatever it is, or on a week or whatever. Um, I think it's a quick road to burnout, and it's a quick road to giving up on the marathon you have started. I'm a little bit older than you, and I would just tell you, and I'm very impatient myself, and I'm very ambitious myself. So I also need to tell this to myself, but I would say enjoy the ride, take it easy, and don't forget to breathe on the way. I mean, working that hard, self-care is the base of the care principles. You need to take time for yourself to rest your brain, to get bored, because then the best ideas pop up. And spending all those hours in meetings is just, it's killing your brain, instead of and even if you talk with interesting people and whatever, but you don't have time to process this, and your brain is not a computer, it's not quantum physics. Your brain needs that. So that would be my advice for you. Take some time off and not like a holiday and like then go, oh, we're gonna go crazy and go on a holiday. No, just build in some nice resting points during the day and lower your workload during the day. So that's my point of view. If you want to realize your dream, but for the rest, best of luck, and I hope to one day knock your door in Oaxaca and say high five, you did it. I'll come and congratulate you personally on that. um, Back to your second question, which I forgot. It's Friday evening here, so my brain is fried as well.
Yeah, the billionaire table, like the big boys, how can you disrupt them if you haven't maxed out their own games?
Mm. How do I disrupt them? Well, there's actually two things that I see today where it works. The first one is when the CEO has daughters of approximately 20, 25, or maybe a little bit younger. Those daughters, they are not very impressed with their fathers, selling whatever stuff, driving whatever big cars, polluting the planet. And so their ego is eaten by their daughters. And so they start to wonder what is happening? Why am I not the glorious daddy that I thought I would be with all my money and my big car and my, the big show that I'm giving? And these daughters are not interested at all and are buying secondhand clothes and are eating vegan food and are just saying, Dad, get out of the way. What you're doing is old fashioned. And so they start to understand that the world is changing, and so they start to open up a little bit for the new world. So that is one thing. And then the second thing is, again, the same CEOs with the same daughters. When these daughters start to work and they start to feel that as a young girl you don't get the same opportunities as young guys, they start to feel that a lot of leadership is not the right type of leadership for young people today. And then they also are then they react as a father, like, what? Your boss said this, or what? Your boss did that. And then they start to reflect on their own leadership style. So is let's say that is one type of CEO that I meet who is open for change. And then the second type of CEO that I meet from the All Boys Network that I meet that is open for change is the ones that want to grow, but they can't grow anymore because they need young, talented people. And they can still find them very often with good salaries, but they can't keep them. So they still know how to gain the talents, but they can't retain them because young people today, there was just a study released here in Belgium. Half of the less than 25-year-olds doesn't want to work full time anymore in Belgium. Half. That's 50% of young people who say goodbye to the full time job. And on a global scale, this is what is going on. And so they go like, I'm trying everything, Isabel. I'm trying everything. But what do I need to do? What do I need to do to keep these people, to grow my company? And I tell them it's about culture. It's about different leadership. It's about all of these things. And that is the two cases in which I find a foot between the door and I can open the door and introduce the care principles and introduce a new type of leadership. But it's not like a walk in the park. I'm gonna be honest. It's not like, ooh, I just can lay beer on my back and jobs are flying in because the world is so caring. No, most people, specifically the ones in charge, specifically the C-level, it's people from 40, 50, 60 years old who have grown up with different mentalities, different mindsets, different dreams. It was all about economical growth. It was all about ego growth, and that has to change. But the good thing, Charles, is that I also give. I'm often invited to give guest lectures at universities, and then I'm in front of very young people, 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, MBA students, and it's gonna change. It's really gonna change. I can see it. I can feel it, but it will take time.
It will. Thanks for today, Isa. Where can people find out more information about you?
You can find out everything on thecareprinciples.com. I have written a book about it. You can order it on amazon.com. The book is called Does Your Brand Care? Building a Better World with the Care Principles. You can follow my podcast. It's aired in 48 countries. It's also called the Care Principles Podcast. Or you can book me as a strategist, a keynote speaker. I'm there. Just give me a call.